Okay, hi Chris, can you hear me? I'm really sorry, guys. I have no idea why this is all breaking down. Uh, I bless you for your patience. I last time I had a few problems, and okay, now it's loud and clear. Good. No, the first time I did this, um, I had some technical problems. Second time everything was fine, and now I'm doing it again. I'm having technical problems once again. So okay, good that you can hear me. The joy of modern technology. Exactly. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the comments section up on um, the page, the community page. So what instead I'll do is I'll switch between the stream and the page. So I'll respond to what you have to say. Stick another 50p in the meter before it goes out again. Good idea. So I just want to go through the questions that I got from the community. So I'll just go with the first one. So it's Gareth O'Callaghan said, given the rubbish spouted by Nigel Farage and his merry men, Robin Hood, in the European Parliament in the final speeches, can you please critically assess their contribution and how positive it was from the EU and their narrative? My opinion, they only achieved heightened tensions, increasing the unity in the European Parliament. So let's have a look at the video of Nigel. If you haven't seen it, I will watch it together and then I'll comment on it. Okay, so let's, hopefully it works. So I just go back to the beginning, take off mute.
We will be leaving this prison of nations at the end of January. And we won't become a third country, as I've been hearing this morning. No, we're going to become an independent, self-governing nation. And you can delude yourselves this morning inside this cathedral that all is well, but it isn't. It isn't.
What is it with all the... They're like nodding dogs in the background. You know, laugh and nod, laugh and nod.
People do not want to be run and governed by faceless bureaucrats like Michel and von der Leyen. Did you hear them earlier? Dull as ditch water. You're being rejected. And it's great news that in Poland, opinion polls now show...
I don't like how he talked about Poland, because Poland is talking about, you know, getting the judiciary, getting, you know, politics involved in the judiciary. And that's a big problem, I think. You know, Terry Jones is a cult. Yeah, I agree. These MEPs are going to get paid for full 5 years, and probably also a pension. I'd like to know whether they're going to get a pension as well. You know, they may be leaving the European Union, but they may also get a pension. So, and we're going to be paying for that.
A majority of polls think they'd be better off outside the European Union. Brexit is the beginning of the end of this project. We are giving leadership, and we'll take it.
What leadership? You're saying you're giving leadership. What leadership? You want to leave. How is that leadership?
To a Europe of sovereign states working together, being friends together, but not being run by the gang down at the middle there.
This is something that Nigel has talked about before. Yes, we need to have a united Europe, a Europe working together, but how can you have a cohesive Europe if it's not, you know, organized in some way? It's like saying, yes, we're going to have different counties working together, but we're not going to form a country. Okay, the European Union is not a country, but it's a cooperation. It works better if it's a cooperation. Okay, and that was it. Okay, I don't know if there was another video, a longer one of that, but what more have we to say? He's there just to, you know, to make some money for himself, and you see these people behind him. There's a better shot towards the end. You can see all of them here. Is that Anne Whitcomb? And that was the guy over here on the left who ran as an MP as well in I don't remember the town near the sea in the UK. Anyway, that's enough of those guys. I'll just go back. No, I want to have a look at the chat here. So let me see. Do you have any questions? The thing is, there are so many Poles outside Poland making lots of money and putting down roots. Some Poles have been in the UK for 18 years. Yeah, well, I think the attitude back home is slightly different to the people living in the UK. You know, the Poles living in the UK have a different attitude to them who are living at home. The dinosaur is that is Anne Whitcomb. How old is she, and how long has she been around the block? You know, she's been in Parliament forever. I guess she's not going to. What is she going to do after this? Go to a retirement home or something? Bashiro, yeah, I agree 100%. Labour needs to back a new voting system, PR. But Labour are not going to back that, the same way as the Conservatives are not going to back it, because it will mean that they'll get less votes. It'll mean that the smaller parties will get more votes, and there's a likelihood that the bigger parties may split up into smaller ones, because, you know, there isn't an incentive to form a smaller party today. A million years old. There's no incentive to form a smaller party. So in the future, if there was PR, then yeah, you would get more smaller parties. You get less individual parties running governments. Now that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's better to have a collection, a coalition of different parties working together. Poles have been here since World War II. They help maintain farmlands, etc. Yeah, as I said in one of the videos I uploaded, a lot of people in the UK and in many rich European countries, they don't want to work. They don't want to do. Sorry, let me correct that. They don't want to do specific works. Specific jobs. They want to do high-paying jobs, high-skilled work. So we need somebody to do the low-paid work, and it's normally, and I mean this in no offensive way. I just mean it's mainly people from poorer countries, like in the past and until recently, countries in Eastern Europe. While there are exceptions, of course, like Estonia or Latvia, where the economy is very strong there and people are doing quite well. She's been in politics since the 70s, first elected in 1987. Whitcomb looks like a member of the first Lord of the Rings movie. Fantastic. I think she's finished in politics and her looks start to fade. Max, do you think... who do you think is the best candidate for the Labour Labour leadership? They clearly need a more centrist leader to bridge the divide. My money's on Ken Starmer. I think... Who's the best? I think Ken Starmer, in my opinion, would be probably the best. Now, while I was waiting for the stream to come on, I was looking at just a link to the page, actually, so we can look at it together. So we'll get rid of Nigel. And we'll put in this one. And hopefully it will work. So we have here Clive Lewis. So it says here, Clive Lewis joins race to be Labour leader, pledging to unleash party. Shadow Treasury Minister says he wants to go further than Jeremy Corbyn in giving power to Labour members. So I'm not familiar with Clive Lewis. I've seen his name around Twitter, but I'm not familiar very much with him. Are you guys familiar with Clive Lewis? Because, I'm a political junkie, but I should know more about these things. Anyway, it says here, Clive Lewis has declared his candidacy for Labour leader with a pledge to go further than Jeremy Corbyn in giving party members a say on policy and the selection of MPs. Well, I think that's a good idea, giving more, as I was saying earlier in the video about opening the party up a bit. HMQ says John Lewis would do better. James is a soft Brexiter. I'm soft on Brexit. We need a proper left-wing party, not a divided Labour Party. He used to be in the army. Yes, let's get rid of Nigel. David Lammy has enough social justice credentials to keep the far left of the party happy, but Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if this was a storm in a teacup or whatever, but wasn't there some allegations of racism or something surrounding David Lammy? Something about comments he made about white people or something like that. While it may not be something, it could be regarded as baggage, perhaps, that could, affect him going ahead. But I don't know if that's really an issue or not. He's always been pretty good on question time. Clive Lewis is, I think, an ex-soldier, but very hard left. Represents Norwich. If Brexit is to be done, what would be the best deal? Lammy, you really think he would be a popular choice? If Brexit would be what would be the best deal? Well, staying in the customs union would be the best deal, but I don't think that's going to happen. If we get a deal, it would be on the EU terms. Yeah, that's right. So going back to Chris, I think it was Chris's question, or was it Bushiro's question about who would be the best candidate. See, I think there's a few things, there are a few boxes to tick. Would it be better to have a woman? Because it could show that the party is changing. Would it be better to have someone who's centrist, like perhaps Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer, in my opinion, looks a bit like Tony Blair. And I don't mean that just physically, but he sort of presents himself a bit like Tony Blair. And I don't know that much about him. I've just followed a little bit about him regarding the whole Brexit scenario. And he seems like, an articulate individual. They say he has Keir Starmer has a working class background, but he is able to appeal to the middle class. Now, I don't know if that's really important, but when I think of a leader at the moment, I think of Keir Starmer. Now, there's also Jessica Phillips. Jess Phillips, appeals to the working class. She seems like a real working class fighter. Old style Labour MP. He swears a lot when he's angry. Oh, we all swear a lot when we're angry, so. I imagine Boris swears a lot when he's angry as well. All behind closed doors, of course. Would the EU insist on workers' rights to prevent cheap, unregulated labour undercutting them? I think the European Union would insist on whatever they can. That would probably be one of them. Yes, as I said before, they don't want a Singapore type of economy on their doorstep. They want, a country that's working with them. They want a partner. They don't want competition. And, if the Tories go down the line of cutting workers' rights and stuff like that and regulations, there's that risk. And I don't think the European Union would stand for that. They would probably punish the UK in some sense. Okay, they can't control workers' rights, but they could say, okay, well, we'll put tariffs or whatever on your goods. Jess Phillips is terrible, Max. What's terrible about her, Kevin? Because I've just heard her make some speeches in the House of Commons, so I haven't. Was she a Brexiter? Was she a Remainer? Although really that's not so important now because that issue is off the table. But John Williams says Clive Lewis, is the only Labour MP in Norfolk. For Norwich South, he has no known baggage, an excellent military record, very difficult for media to slate. That could be very interesting because, he could use that. That was one of the issues that a lot of people had against Jeremy Corbyn. He's not willing to defend us. He's not someone who stands up for veterans. He's palling around with the wrong people. You couldn't use that against Clive Lewis. Would Clive Lewis lack experience, perhaps? But then maybe my questions about Clive Lewis maybe are pointless because I don't know him, so maybe I can't make a proper critique. But I'm interested to know what you guys have to say about him. There's a clip on YouTube where she's laughing about male suicide. That's not good. Jess Phillips isn't terrible. Are you sure she was laughing about it, or was it taken out of context? I'm not defending her. I just sometimes, some people will cut things together and make it look like she's laughing at something that's not really that issue. I lost respect for Hilary Benn when backed airstrikes in Syria. His father must have been turning. Hilary Benn would have been why was he doing that? His father was a real. It's such a pity his father isn't still around. His dad died. His dad was in the RAF. He would have happily bombed the caliphate. George Galloway for leader of the Labour Party. George Galloway I described as, in one of the videos I described him as the Scottish version or the British version of Alex Jones. Out of context. Also, David Lammy's wife is white, so anti-white bias would be tough to smear him with. That's good. The male suicide is out of context. So I'm not defending what Jess Phillips said. So we have to be very careful that certain people who disagree with her may, take bits of videos and put them together in a way that it makes it look like she's laughing at something that she's not laughing at. Honestly, lads, I've seen the video so many times. Well, Kevin, I'll check that out. So I want to know the truth here. So I'm going to check those videos out. I'll do a search online, and then I think it's always important when there's a video like that where somebody's saying that somebody's doing something. It's important also to check to see if there's a response video to that. Just to get the two sides to understand what's really happening. Galloway is like Jesse Ventura. Don't insult Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura is a great guy. Although a bit strange. No, she was laughing at some Tory MP claiming that there was no representation of male mental health in the House of Commons, I assume. That was a very apt description of George Galloway. Let me go back to the page. So we have the questions. So the next question I look at here is Colm Wade. I don't know if he's on the stream. If you're on the stream, Colm, this is for you. How much money did Russian oligarchs in England give to the party? Oh, and does Robert Murdoch have a tail? So Russian money in the UK. I don't know. Did the Russians? Well, I'm a bit skeptical about this thing about Russian money coming in, because I've said in one of the videos before that maybe what Putin wants is to disrupt the apple cart, to cause confusion. So I don't think he's backing particular people, but in his eyes, there are two main groups opposing him. It's the United States and the European Union at the moment. So if he's able to cause confusion in both of those states, in both of those entities, it helps him in a way. So I don't think he focuses money on one particular candidate, but we've seen how, troll farms and things like that are able to cause disruption. I think the idea is maximum disruption, but the amounts of money we're talking about are very, very little. Like in the US, it was something like Killer for Funghorn, more like American money. Yes, I'm much more worried about American money. Like, to give you an example, in Ireland there was the repeal of Article 8 in the Irish Constitution, which was related to abortion, and it passed successfully, but there was a lot of money coming from evangelical Christians from the US attempting to pump propaganda into the discussion, saying, and they were of course choosing one side. Fortunately they failed, but they were spending a lot of money on Facebook, a lot of money on Twitter, advertising, pumping propaganda basically into the discussion. And fortunately people saw it and people understood it. So that's why it's important to have a very robust media who will point this out. But what's happening in other parts of the world, unfortunately, is not so clear. Boris will make Britain great again. Compared to when? When was Britain great the last time? And how is he going to make it great again? Steve C. Now, come on. If you're going to comment like this, I'm going to have to put you on hide. O'Brien for the gallows. Brexit happened because of Nigel Farage. Nigel made it okay to talk about mass migration. Nigel mentioned getting back to our sovereignty after blaming the EU immigrants. I want my country back. Yeah. It was a simple message. Slogans, simple messages. It works on people. People think there may be Russian money. That's all Putin wants. He wants people to be unsure. Yeah, so as I was talking before about it, in America, Putin had spent something like, Russians had spent something like $150,000 in Facebook ads, which is nothing, really nothing. There are YouTubers who would spend more than that. So the idea that Russia influenced the election in 2016 in the US is, pushing it a lot. Okay, a bit harsh. O'Brien is a clever guy. We all say things, sometimes we say things that are clever and sometimes we say stupid crap. So I've just pre-ordered Galloway's new book. What's it called? He was in the Tories originally, but he left because they weren't hard enough for him. Mithril, I assume you're talking about George Galloway? George Galloway was in the Tories? No, maybe you're not talking about George Galloway. Perhaps you're talking about someone else. Mr. Johnson will make England great for the usual crew of high finance, wealthy landowners, and the rest of us will be used as fodder, as always with the Tories. Unfortunately, I agree, Mithril. But with the American evangelical, they have been linked to the NRA, and they have already been proven to be getting money from Russia. Queensway is about the Second World War. Okay. I'll go to the next question here. So we have Andrew Franklin. So Andrew, if you're on the stream, let me know. How best can the opposition parties make themselves more effective in trying to hold the government to account? So this is an interesting question. How can I was talking about Farage. Okay. So how can the opposition parties hold the government to account? I don't think they can do very much in Parliament. Now, there are some parliamentary tools they can use to hold Boris Johnson somewhat to account. But mainly any type of activity they want to do, they want to take part in, they need some Tories on their side, and that's not looking likely. I think you need to get the people involved. You need to get people on the streets. You need to put pressure on, not just on Boris Johnson, but on Tory MPs. I'm not talking about violence or anything like that, but when they go to cabinet meetings, when they're walking around town, whatever, put pressure on them, challenge them, ask why are they doing this, why are they doing that, why are they supporting policies that make people poorer, that damage the lives of ordinary people. If you have mass, I think it was Kyle Kalinske was talking about this. You need to have an inside game and an outside game. So the inside game would be inside Parliament. Parliamentarians talk about particular issues. For example, let's take an example, universal credit. Universal credit, people have to wait up to 5 weeks to get their payments. This is a disaster. Politicians coordinate with inside Parliament with protesters outside Parliament. So when there's going to be a protest, you need parliamentarians talking about it on that day, ask questions, bring it up at Prime Minister's question times, put pressure on Boris Johnson, ask the Tories why aren't they making the situation better for ordinary people who are on universal credit, but at the same time organise protests on the day so that there's noise outside Parliament on that issue. And I think if you do this is one possible way of putting pressure on the government to change these policies. Apart from that, I don't know what else you can really do. Anyone who follows George Galloway knows he is the biggest Kremlin apologist and frequently uses whataboutisms whenever probed about his misdoings. Why is he always on Russia Today, RT? Like, he doesn't actually present any new ideas. He just criticizes everyone. He's like, the Tories are bad, Labour is bad, the European Union is bad, the SNP is bad, everyone is bad. He doesn't have anything really to add to the discussion. He's just against everything, and he's critical of everything. The public have been shown since the result that rights are going to be stripped, scrutiny going to be gone, and trade a lot more difficult than said. Still, Brexiters, don't care that they've been lied to. It's depressing. Glasgow kiss, yes. Because people voted for an idea. They didn't vote for a policy. Boris Johnson said, I'll get Brexit done. And for a lot of people, that was good enough. People find him entertaining. Yeah, he's a bit like Jimmy Dore. If you're not familiar with Jimmy Dore, I recommend you check him out. Hi, Wee Scott's dog. Jimmy Dore is an interesting character. He's a firebrand. He's a bit like George Galloway, but he's American. He's not like Alex Jones. Alex Jones is completely, in Ireland we say, ahead the ball. But Jimmy Dore, he's a comedian, but he's really, really sharp, and he's against everyone basically. But he does have a few people he does like Tulsi Gabbard, for example. Article 33 of Geneva Convention: refugees to seek asylum in first safe country. I don't know if that's part of the Geneva Convention. Another Egypt. Jimmy Dore, another Egypt. Egypt or Egypt? I want to do the pronunciation correctly. All right. So you just ignored me for some reason. I'm not sure what I've done to offend you, but all right now, one less subscriber. But I'm sorry, 92 Revolver. I'm receiving a lot of messages here, so I'm sorry if I didn't respond. You can send a message again on the chat. I'm trying to respond to questions on the chat, but I'm also trying to respond to questions on the forum that I created today. And to answer your question about Galloway and RT Robs, between November 2013 and February 2015, he was paid more than £100,000 in front to front his own show on the channel. Says it all. Damn it! I'll rant and rave, and maybe they'll give me £100,000 as well. But then I don't have name recognition like George Galloway. Didn't he had a party called the Respect Party? I don't know, did they win a seat or anything like that? Galloway's shift on Brexit. Galloway supported Brexit, but from a left-wing point of view, that we need to get away from the European Union because it's like a dictatorship. He's like... Oh, great. My computer is telling me to do an update. Okay, sorry about that. It's technical problems. If it's not the computer not working, it's an update arriving from Windows. Sorry about that, guys. Edit. Okay. Evening, can we address the real issue? First past the post and election laws. Cider Chick, is that your name? See, the problem with, and I agree with you that the first past the post is a disaster, a friggin' disaster, and it needs to be reformed. But the problem is the two main parties who have the power to do it don't want to change it. Labour don't want to change it, and the Tories don't want to change it because it benefits them. If they replace it with proportional representation, you're guaranteed that they will lose power, that you'll have smaller parties coming in, and they will benefit from that. And they don't want that because it takes away their power. It's like asking politicians to vote to reduce their salaries, basically. Not going to happen. Like, you'd need a groundswell of support. You'd need the public to push it because small parties don't have the power to do it, and big parties don't want to do it. So you'd need the public to put pressure on politicians to change it. I think, if you really put pressure... Oh, I have a new subscriber. I really feel if you put strong pressure on individual members of parliament, you might get them to sign up to it. But the parties, no. Beats Alex Salmon anyway. I assume you're talking about George Galloway. I know what Boris likes. Jacob Rees-Mogg. I don't understand that comment. There's been a shift recently inside Labour. Many MPs do want to change first past the post. That's great news if it's true, because for years they've been rejecting it. And I understand why they would be against it, because it's against their interest. It stops majorities, basically. Single party majorities. Galloway's Labour Brexit Party. Turkey's voting for Brexmas. Since he supported Hamas and Iran, I stopped listening to anything Galloway says. I think Galloway is a bit of a shock jock. I don't know if he really trusts or he really supports. Well, I think he was getting money from Iran. He was on, I don't remember the name of the channel. There was a broadcaster from Iran that was promoting him. And then his wife is Iranian, I think, but I don't, maybe ex-wife, I'm not sure. Just joined. Why are we talking about Galloway? Why not Johnny Jackson? Galloway is a fantastic. We've all signed up to to George Galloway's manifesto. No, that's a joke. I can guarantee it. Why is England so right wing? Well, England is not right wing. It's the system supports Press TV. Thank you very much, Press TV. Press TV is Iranian. It's not British or international. So, like, why were they supporting him? I don't believe England is right wing. I think it's this first past the post that has promoted right wing parties like the Conservatives. Okay, I just want to go back to the questions on the community page. So the next one is Matt Henley says, I'm not sure whether it's totally relevant or whether you've already covered it, but was the embargo placed on John Pillager's The Dirty War on the NHS a totally impartial decision by Ofcom? I'm not familiar with that, so I can't really comment. The next question, Johnny Jackson, or Johnny's in the stream. So Scottish and Irish independence going forward. Nicola Sturgeon requested that Section 30 order this morning. Will be interesting to see how Boris reacts. So Scottish and Irish independence. So will Scotland become independent? Well, I think internally there's enough support, and maybe we Scotsdog can correct me on this, but I think there's enough support in Scotland to get independence. And Ireland, well, I think things are starting to trend in the opposite direction. You know, you had Sinn Féin didn't improve their vote in the general election, but the SDLP, which is a more moderate party, did improve its vote. So I think at the moment Irish unity is on the shelf. Now, of course, it depends on how Brexit works out, but at the moment, I think Irish unity is, on the back burner. But full steam ahead to Scotland now. I don't know. Is it possible for Scotland to force the government in Westminster to allow Scotland to call a second referendum? I don't know. I don't know the laws enough to answer that question. Glasgow Kiss, Indy is going to get tested in the courts. Tories never gonna agree to Section 30. Boris was caught today playing on his phone during the SNP press question at PMQ. I'd be sad to see the Scots go, but I think they should take their chance now. The choice is staying. I think now is the moment for Scottish independence. I think Nicola Sturgeon has, no better opportunity than this moment, because you have a hard right Tory government headed by Boris Johnson, looking to get out of the European Union as soon as possible. So, what more could you ask for if you were a member of the SNP? Of course, they're going to attempt to block it, and you can see how the Tories are want at the moment to take control of the judiciary, to take control of the courts, to decide who the chief justices are. So I think that's going to be a big problem for Scotland. Will the judges allow it to go through? Guys, if the chat is moving quite quickly, so if I miss one of your questions and I don't answer it, please ask it again. Even copy it and paste it. It's not a problem, because a lot of them are passing by quickly and I can't answer all of them. The Scots have a choice between two unions. One of these may be falling apart. I'm sure I've heard Nicola Sturgeon mention it, that it would be challenged in the court. It'd be interesting, would it be challenged in the Scottish court or in the English court? 2021, once we have had 6 months of Brexit, there will be a major shift towards independence. Yeah, see, there's political will, but is the law a problem for it? Let me try and put the chat on slow. Just a moment. Why can I not do any of these things? Ah. No, it won't let me. It's okay. Okay. Okay, I just want to go back to the questions on the channel page. So this comment I'll just jump. What Johnson Commons plans are for the new working class voters? That's an interesting question. So what are Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings going to do with the working class voters? How are they going to keep them on board? I think propaganda would be the main one. Selling people the idea that they are doing something when they're not really doing anything. Maybe they'll throw them a few, bones, in the sense that they may, sorry, the volume is very low. I'm moving away from the microphone. Maybe what they'll do is they'll give the certain regions, they may, turn up and pump some money into a hospital from time to time, or they may give a local council a bit more cash, something like that. But generally, I think it's going to be a propaganda issue. Hi, Michael. It's going to be a big propaganda push, I think. Because it's not important to actually do anything. It's more important to look like you're doing something. So, unseen recordings. Can you hear me better now? I hope the volume is better. Okay. Constitutional reform, specifically the Tory plans for erosion of the powers of JR, coupled with their plans to elect Supreme Court justices, to erode the principles of the separation of powers. That's from Will Van. See that I think this will be Boris Johnson's goal throughout the. I think this will be Boris Johnson. So I'm reading the chat and then I'm trying to respond at the same time. This will be Boris Johnson's goal throughout his session in Parliament, and his administration will be to reduce the powers of the judiciary, I think, increase his power within Parliament to create new laws, in a way, run the country from number 10 and maybe number 11, but not to have any interference from the judiciary. We've seen it last year. We've seen it this year, back in September and October, where the courts were giving him hell. He doesn't want that anymore. He'd prefer just to rule by decree, probably. So, see, I'm not an expert on constitutional law, so I don't know how much Boris Johnson can do. I'd love to do a live stream with Phil from A Different Bias. So I'm going to see about contacting him to do a live stream. I know he mainly does them in a different format, but I'd like to get some legal experts or some people who know the Constitution a lot better than I do, to talk about this, because this is a serious issue, and I think it's going to be something that a lot of people are not going to know about it until it's very, very late. Okay, next question we have here is from Chris Town. Will the report into Russian interference in elections invalidate the referendum, the general election 2017, or preferably the general election 2019? No. It cannot invalidate. But even if it did, you're not going to get Boris Johnson removed from office. You're not going to get Brexit cancelled because of Russian interference. Even if it was completely proven, even in a court of law, it's not going to change the situation. Okay, back in the chat, Gary Clark says, Max, why do you think populism has become the norm in politics? Do you think the rise in voting on personality and misinformation is a dangerous sign for the future? Yes, Gary, that's a good question. Why is it becoming more popular? Because I think what has happened over the last 20 years and 30 years perhaps also is we've seen a separation, a distance between ordinary people and the people they elect. So politicians have become so distant from ordinary people that they have been crying out for someone to represent them in a better way. And something about populism is that it's not defined really as left or right, and it's not centrist either. It's choosing, it's picking from left, right, center, from different ideologies, and mixing it together and saying this is the ideas of the people. Now, I'm not against it in theory and many times in practice, but if it's used in the correct way. I think the problem at the moment is that it's being used by people on the right as a tool to push towards a type of dictatorship, really. So that's I think the big problem. How do we deal with it? I think we need to create trust again in institutions. We've lost trust in institutions, and we need to build trust again in institutions. How do we do that? I don't know. And it's not something on the cards at the moment, unfortunately. The centre-left was too compliant in implementing austerity post-2008 and lost credibility with its own voters. I agree. Max, do you reckon is Corbyn ever pulled the whip and got his MPs to vote for a second referendum, any of this would have happened? Why do you think he never did? Because I don't know if you've been following the channel, but I've said before that Corbyn wants Brexit to happen because he wants, well, not now, but he wanted Brexit back, the last 6 months. He wanted Brexit to happen so the Tories would get blamed for it. He knew Brexit would be damaging, but he wanted the Tories to get the blame. So I think what his idea was to so I'm looking at the chat. I should stop doing that. So stay on I'll focus on the point at hand. I think what he wanted to do was get the Tories to get Brexit done, in a sense. It'd be a disaster. They would get blamed for it, and then he would have a general election after that. Maybe call a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson or whoever the PM at the time was, and win the general election. But of course, he hadn't planned it out very well. And this is, a problem I have had with him was I had always thought that he was really, really clever and really Machiavellian in a sense, because I thought he was always one step ahead of everyone else. and his, when we looked at his policies, well, that looks really dumb, but in reality, he knows what he's doing. And in reality, no, he was not in control of events, or his party, and he let things slip on a number of occasions, hoping that the Tories would get the blame for Brexit. And then what happened was he got, snookered in a sense that the SNP and the Liberal Democrats agreed to Boris Johnson's election, because I think Jeremy Corbyn was hoping that he would be able to ride it out a bit longer, and that support for Boris Johnson would eventually collapse, and then when the election was called, Boris Johnson would have no hope in winning. But he was outmaneuvered by Boris Johnson, Joe Swinson and the SNP entirely. I disagree. Corbyn was silly enough to think he could win the general election or force a hung parliament to form a government so he could just negotiate his dream Lexit. And what makes you think Corbyn didn't sabotage Labour so that most destructive Brexit is ensured? I hope that's not the truth. Trust in institutions is a double-edged sword. Populists will be seen as the elites, but it is a dangerous cycle. We're down the rabbit hole. And I agree, we got stuck. The future, we used to be able to predict the future in a sense, in a political sense. We used to be able to say, okay, the Tories have a cycle, then it rolls back to Labour, then it rolls back to the Tories. But now the situation is completely different. There's a chance that Boris Johnson could be Prime Minister after 5 years, and there's someone else in the Tories is Prime Minister. Or maybe Boris Johnson even after that. Boris Johnson will be in his 80s and needs to be Prime Minister of the UK, or whatever's left of the UK. Max, if and when the UK leaves the EU, can or will the EU make an example of us for leaving? If so, how could they do that? Ewan. I've said before how I think once the UK leaves, so you said when or if the EU will make an example. It's not so much an example, but I think they will punish, in a sense, the UK, because they don't want other countries having, if the UK has it easy, other countries like Poland, Greece, maybe to a lesser extent Italy, they may say, oh, look, it's actually not so bad to leave the European Union. There's no real punishment. So maybe we should leave also. Populist parties in those countries may say, oh, well, it's not so bad. You don't get punished. You can set up outside with pretty good deals. Why don't we do it as well? The European Union obviously don't want that, and they have nothing to lose by punishing the UK. And at the end of the day, the EU have been quite cordial with the UK up to this point, also because the UK is a member. But I can guarantee you after that, the knives will come out. Now, not publicly, but privately it will. They will really have the UK over a barrel, and it will be horrible. But they will have their reasons to do it, because they will put integrity of the European Union above everything else. The left in the UK is too many left-wing parties that split and already minority vote. The right know fine well how to game first past the post. Relevance of Brexit Party. All those parties have massive baggage. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the questions on the community page once again. Let me see. Nigel's speech, so we looked at that at the beginning. Bertrach1 said, please talk about how the Leave groups used organizations like Cambridge Analytica to spread blatant lies to swing the original referendum. Without that crime, we wouldn't have this shit show. So I think, Max, how have you been? Oh, I've been very well. Metacooler. So how have Cambridge Analytica worked? So I'm not an expert on this, but I'll give you a layman's expression, or a layman's explanation, I should say. How Facebook works with this type of data is that, for example, if you like a particular topic, let's choose something non-political. I like HP printers. Okay. If I like HP printers and I go on forums and I talk about HP printers, no, I'm not Italian, Metacooler. I'm Irish, but I live in Italy. So back to Facebook. If I like HP printers and I go on forums to ask questions about them or to talk about them, how great they are or whatever, Facebook will understand this and they will continually send me information. So if someone else shares something about HP printers, they'll attempt to get me involved in that. So they'll send that type of information my way, in a sense. They'll promote information about HP printers towards groups that I'm in, for example, and in a sense they'll try and send as much any documentation, ads, funny prints, whatever, printouts, whatever. I'm using a terrible example here, but you get the idea, about HP printers, in order to keep me on the page, to keep me on Facebook, because they know that if they're able to collect data about me, for example, I like HP printers, but I also like HP computers, or I like certain types of music, or I like certain types of clothes, or I like particular food, they're able to build up a huge profile about me, and they're able to use that information as a selling point to people who want to advertise. So they can focus and say, okay, you want to advertise? We can, if you pay extra, we'll be able to focus your advertising directly to someone like me. So if HP want to sell printers, they want to find people who like it. And what Cambridge Analytica were more or less doing was creating this type of data lists or profiles and selling it to politicians. So telling politicians, okay, we know what type of people like this, this, and this. And if you send them particular information, they're more likely to share it with their friends and family. And so that's pretty much, very high level version of what they were doing. Now, how did this influence the referendum for Brexit? Well, people who are more likely to disagree with the European Union were fed more and more propaganda that the European Union was bad. They were more likely to share it with people who agreed with them. And it felt, it was a continuous cycle. They were not showing information that was critical to their way of thinking. They were not challenged on their beliefs with different types of information or different sources. So it continually allowed certain individuals to easily push propaganda or misinformation. Okay, back to the channel page. Killer Feng Howl. I'm butchering these names. I shouldn't even read these names. Boris Johnson legislating against our right to boycott Israeli products and the erosion of the definition of anti-Semitism to what it's being pushed as today. Trump and his ludicrous executive order announcing that Judaism is a nationality. Should legislating cannabis be taking this long, considering a huge surge in medical and recreational? Okay, well, we have a lot of different issues here. So first, Boris Johnson legislating against our right to boycott Israeli products. So that's against freedom of expression. The erosion of the definition of anti-Semitism. You know something, guys, which is very funny? Last week, and the idea of anti-Semitism was, this is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. We need to deal with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. And now today it's completely gone. You don't hear anything about it. So was it an issue? Or is it not an issue? Do you understand what I'm talking about? For a week, 2 weeks, 3, even a month, up to the election day, anti-Semitism, Bernie Sanders, even Bernie Sanders was brought in, but that's another issue. Jeremy Corbyn, anti-Semitism. Now, silence. Why? You know, Jeremy Corbyn is still the leader of the Labour Party, so why is this issue no longer important? It reminds me of, and I hope you're not old enough to remember this, maybe some of you are. Back in 2004, George W. Bush was running against John Kerry, the Democrat. And I remember there was a group set up called the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth. It's a fantastic name. The Swift Boat Veterans for Truth. Because during the Vietnam War, John Kerry was in the military, and he was part of a group of soldiers, or a type of a unit that were called the Swift Boat. So it was a type of boat with a propeller at the back or something like that. And they did covert operations, normally at night, attacks on Viet Cong units or whatever. And he was part of this Swift Boat unit. And in 6 months, this group set up, and they were attacking him, saying that he was a liar, that he was a traitor, that everything they were saying against him, terrible things against him, that he didn't deserve to be in the military, he was a traitor, all of these, this smearing against him. As soon as the election was over, there was no mention of this Swift Boat group again. And people didn't have a problem with that. And another issue was back in, I think it was 2008, the same with Obama. There was a group called Acorn. I don't know if it was 2008 or 2012. Anyway, when Obama was running, there was this group called Acorn, and it was funding money to the Democrats, or it was some corrupt group. Yes, Acorn is this problem, and they were connecting Barack Obama to Acorn, and Acorn is corrupt, and Barack Obama is a corrupt because he's, working with Acorn. But as soon as he was elected, no mention of Acorn once, one iota after that. And it seems to be the same with anti-Semitism against Jeremy Corbyn. Until 1 week ago, it was the most serious issue to talk about. And now today, there's not one mention about it. Why? If it's a serious issue, shouldn't we still be talking about it? But no, there's no mention about it at all. So, this was a smear. Because if it wasn't a smear, and it was a real issue, then why is it not still front page news? Of course it was a smear because it was used as a political tool. Like, I'd like to ask the chief rabbi, is it still a problem for you? He'd probably say, who? What? No, that was just for the election. No, I think you guys deserve to be responded to, so let me see. They have very little else they could use to attack Corbyn, so they just recycle the lies ad nauseum, yes. Well, I'm not defending Corbyn, because I think Corbyn, as I've said in many videos, he had a lot of problems. Brexit was his biggest issue. Like I said, it erodes the definition, yes. Yes, because if everything... It's unfortunately like the definition of racism. You say... If I say Chinese people like eating rice, people would say that's racist. Or Italian people like eating pasta, that's racist. Your people associate, a stereotype as racist. Sorry, the EU's #1 fan, Max, don't you remember this? Remember what? Can you just repeat what you said? Because I was yapping away and I didn't read the chat. Can't stand JC, but the smears were a disgrace. OMG, W2F, I agree. They're doing the same thing to Bernie Sanders, and he's actually Jewish. Yes, I was like, what the F? I saw that this morning. It was this morning or yesterday evening, that there were articles saying Bernie Sanders, who's Jewish, who lost his family in the Holocaust. I think his uncle or his aunt, it's not important who it was, he lost members of his family in the Holocaust. And people are saying, yes, but maybe Bernie Sanders has a problem with anti-Semitism. What? How low do people have to... Like, they can't find anything on Bernie Sanders. We can't find, did he sell drugs when he was a teenager? Or did he, did he rob a store? Or did he... sell political favors? No, we can't find anything on Bernie Sanders. So let's find something that we can try and get it to stick. Anti-Semitism is quite popular in the UK at the moment. Let's throw that at Bernie Sanders. Do these people know who Bernie Sanders actually is? Max, why do you think Corbyn forward the book Imperialism, a book that claimed European finance was controlled by men of a singular and EU's #1 fan. I wasn't familiar with that. I'll have to look into that. But if it's true, that's... Look, has he been challenged on that? Has he responded to that allegation? Or not even an allegation. If he is, if he wrote that, then what was his response? Because I think it would be important. Look, another problem with Jeremy Corbyn was during the campaign, he wouldn't do interviews. I think he should have gone on LBC, even if it was a disaster. See, this is the thing about doing interviews. You have to do interviews, because even if you're speaking to people who most of them disagree. Look, I know LBC is mainly right wing. James O'Brien and Eddie Mayer and maybe one other are the only moderates or rational people on that channel. But you need to go on that show because it has a huge amount of following. And even if most of the people disagree with you, you may get through to 1%. It's true, Max. It was reported in the Guardian, and James O'Brien spoke about. I honestly, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I didn't actually know about that, but I will read into it. I'll check what James O'Brien said about it. Well, James O'Brien's not an authority, but I want to find out more about that, because I had been defending Jeremy Corbyn against anti-Semitism, so I want to know more about that. Islamophobia is much bigger issue in Britain than anti-Semitism. Yeah, those are some fantastic characters, David, you wrote there. Katie Hopkins, how is she, like, really, I'm dumbfounded on what to say here, because does she write for a newspaper, or how is she employed? Like, how does she survive? How does she make money? Because does she write for The Spectator, or does she write for some magazine or something? Like, I don't know, did she write for the Daily Mail? I don't think the Daily Mail would even accept her. The other people you talked about, like, they're completely fringe, but Katie Hopkins, like, how does she have a job? She writes for The Sun. Okay. How did I not know that? Like, yeah, she wrote for the Daily Mail. Like, she doesn't even hide anything. Normally particular racists, they will use coded language or dog whistles, but she doesn't even do that. She just says, yes, I don't like immigrants. They should be put in containers and dumped in the middle of the sea or something like that. That's what she's like, and she's never challenged on this. She was LBC presenter for a while. See, this is the thing about LBC. I said it's mainly a right-wing channel, radio show, TV show. What would you call it? Online show. But there are some nuggets in the rough. The EU about certain groups prominent in finance. Max, did you ever comment on Jacob Rees-Mogg? Sorry, the chat moved suddenly, and I've lost a. She called immigrants rats once. Okay. In a free okay, so just going back once again to the community page. What policies does the work? Sorry, this is Glenn Bevan says, what policies does the working class want from the Labour Party? That's a good question. What policies does the working class want from the Labour Party? Well, I think the working class want the possibility to have a job. They want maybe more training courses if possible. Many working class peoples are not happy with what they have, and they would like the opportunity to get a job if it's possible, to improve their position, training courses. And I'm not talking about like university courses, but also to be able to learn a trade, things like that. Also support for communities, so like community centers, sports centers, things for young people to do, because a lot of maybe working class people, I'm not an expert, but I'm just giving my opinion, but I think a lot of working class people, their children maybe don't have something to do in the afternoons, in the evenings, and there's a lot of them, the kids end up joining gangs or doing petty crime because there's nothing to do. It's not, some people say that's not an excuse to commit crimes, but if you don't have something to fill your time, you'll do something to fill your time. And we need more money for communities, because if the communities are well funded, young people have more activities to do, they're more likely to have a focus in their lives. They're more likely to say, okay, I want to improve my lot, get a job, improve my situation, and become an active member of society. Sonny Miller says, renewal of communities, job security, better housing. Yes. Like, some of the situations regarding houses are just diabolical. I saw, some people living in high-rise buildings in London, even, where, people are on the 14th or 15th floor and they don't have working lifts. There are water problems, and there's mold, black mold all over the house. People end up with breathing problems. Look at what happened in Glenfell, like in the Glenfell fire, where people where the fire started because of a dodgy fridge, because people didn't have money to replace the fridge. There were no checks carried out on the building, things like that. So the only reason why Corbyn lost is he should have shouted, I love my country and we're going to control immigration. somebody had said that about how they should. I think it was one of the callers to LBC. Yes, he should have stood up with a Union Jack behind him. I would have loved to seen the right wing's meltdown if Jeremy Corbyn had stood up with the Union Jack behind him. Just doing a speech with the Union Jack behind him, it would have blown so many people's minds. White working class and racist immigration has always been a problem in the country. How do Labour tackle it without backing racism or anti-immigration? Damn it, guys, these are difficult questions. Okay. I think someone, I don't remember who it was, but there was a very interesting documentary about dealing with racism, and this was in the US. And it was about bringing people who have similar problems, or who have problems, bringing them together and getting them to discuss what it's like to be them. So you'd have a poor white person, put them with a poor black person, for example, in the US, and they would, the poor white person may be racist or whatever, and when they would sit down, put them in an activity together, like they have to play a football game or they have to do some sort of activity. Like, this is sort of social experimentation. It's not really political policy, but bringing communities together, showing them that they have more in common than they have separate, dividing them, generally tampons down a lot of the racist sentiment, I think. Not really answering your question, I know. It can be very bad if we asked nice fluffy questions all the time. I know, we're here to have a discussion about serious issues. So do you like puppies or do you like bunny rabbits? I know it wouldn't keep many people on the stream. Economy, and anti-immigration sentiment is tied to the poverty people suffer. And I think politicians also take advantage of that, Sonny. I think politicians will say, see, the problems you have are not that, the banks are not lending you money. Favorite pasta. The farfalla is like a butterfly flavor, butterfly size, shape, sorry. The politicians will say to poor people, look, we are not the problem, the immigrant is the problem. I think a very good response to this, and I don't mean to be comparing or looking across the pond to the US all the time, but Andrew Yang, if you're not familiar with Andrew Yang, I recommend you check him out. Andrew Yang said to the people, he went to the places that voted for Donald Trump in 2016, places where Donald Trump had said, look, the immigrants are a problem, the people coming across the border are coming to take your jobs and your livelihoods and everything. And Andrew Yang had said, look, let me speak to you a moment. It's not the immigrant that's the problem. It's AI, it's automation, it's the robots that are really taking your jobs. And did he convert everyone at the rally? No, of course not. But he did convert a few people. And those people went and told that story to other people. So you have to, when politicians tell you something, you have to be very critical of them. You have to be asking yourself, why is the politician telling me this? Instead of just accepting it. And I think, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of poor people in the general election last week. A lot of poor people just bought what Boris Johnson was saying. Only just logged on, but seen nobody talk about jailing the banksters who caused the whole mess. X-ray, so money talks. If you have good lawyers, you can defend yourself better in court. So that's one of the reasons the banksters are not going to go to prison. And of course, it's very easy to hand over a big pile of cash to a politician to make sure that law doesn't take place. I know Max or Phil said it right. We need a leader with no baggage. yeah, you need someone fresh. And maybe this Chris Lewis, is that his name? Sorry, I go back to the Clive Lewis. I think Clive Lewis could be an option, but I can't really say because I'm not familiar with his background and his policies. Bashiro, Max, I really do believe majority of working class are not racist. It's 40 years of neoliberalism that have led to this hate people have. I agree. At the end, when people are put together, they generally realize, look, those people are not so different to me. Those people have the same worries. They care about their children. They care about their family. They care about putting food on the table. They care about job security. They care about, security, like crime in their area. They care about having a job. They're not so different to me. And it takes work and effort to change people's minds. It's much easier just to say Eastern Europeans are a problem, or people from Africa are a problem, or it's very easy for people like Nigel Farage or the people on the far right to do this, because to just give simple answers, because it doesn't require any thinking. It doesn't require you going out of your comfort zone. And unfortunately, a lot of older people are very set in their ways, and they're not open to the idea of, our countries are changing, whether we like it or not. Just like Foxconn in China, they made 1.5 million people redundant the other year by replacing them by robots and other automation. Yeah, QA library. Yeah, it's this is something that's going to really change the way we work. And that's one of the reasons I think we need a universal basic income, because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. What are they going to do? They need meaning in their lives. And also, just one other thing about that is our brains, the human brain is a fantastic, amazing machine. And isn't it just a waste having that machine move boxes from one place to another, or drive a car, when a robot can do it? It frees us up to, think of new things, create new inventions, things that we couldn't dream of. Isn't it a horrible idea that there are people, Nigel Farage with his German immigrant wife, yes, the irony of that. This is why Nigel Farage is such a charlatan for me. He's such a hypocrite. Not even a hypocrite. He knows these things. He's not pretending it. He doesn't care. AI doesn't exist. It's just algorithms. How can zeros and ones be intelligent? Oh no, David, look, that's for another live stream, honestly. I really love that topic as well. Like, what makes us intelligent? What makes us conscious? Is it are we all just brains in a vat or whatever? Is it the Matrix? What are you? I just want to talk about this very quickly, and then I'll move on back onto the political discussion. I love the idea how, every one of us today is a completely different person than we were yesterday. And what I mean by that is, yesterday you maybe met someone, or you heard something on the radio, or heard something on TV, or watched something, or gained knowledge, or lost something, or in your mind, your mind is different from the one the day before, and the day before that, and the week before that. So who are you? Like, what are you? Are you the person today, or are you the person yesterday? Are you the person tomorrow? Which person is you? So the idea of self is very interesting. Anyway, back to politics. Let me see. We bailed out the banksters with $900 gazillion, gazillion pounds, but those bloody immigrants. Exactly, X-ray. It's, if you're able to redirect the problem, the real issue, to someone else, then it's easier to allow bad people to do bad things, to get away with bad behavior. Max, does this mean no free broadband? I wish there was free broadband. My damn connection would work better. Nigel Farage wins. True, Max, the areas that heavily voted for Brexit had relatively low migration levels and also received more money from the EU. Yeah, Briss 88. This is one of the things that really pissed me off about how do a weed question. I should do Killer, I should do a live stream like Elon Musk with weed. Okay. How, you know, I uploaded a video recently or some time ago about how money is spent in different parts of the UK. And I said on numerous occasions, this money would not be spent if it was coming from central government. Weed is a must. The money would not be spent. So the EU decide on merit. They don't decide on who's voting for them. So that's one of the great things about the EU, that the EU say, okay, what areas need investment, and they pump money into those areas. Now, of course, the EU has a lot of problems and needs a lot of reforming. But if it was decided by politicians, the politicians would only send money where they believe they'll get votes. I've never been able to square the need for migration with the rise of automation. Moving away from fiat currency towards a new model of collaborative economics could be one answer. I suspect UBI will be a short-term solution. Yeah, I think UBI is not the silver bullet. It's a good starting point. But we need to move on. We need to move away from fiat currency. We need to move away from paying people a wage to do a job. And most of these jobs are dangerous or disgusting or backbreaking when a machine can do it. And you free up someone to create art even. You know, we undervalue a lot of things like music or art or, storytelling is a fantastic thing that, and this is something fantastic about YouTube, for example. There are many people who have YouTube channels where they just read stories. A very old tradition. People used to sit around the fire and listen to stories. And now that, until YouTube came along, that was a dead tradition. Now it's back. So, Paul Gibbons, good evening, Rob. Who is your next Marxist leader of choice? Marxist leader of choice. Well, no one's going to top Jeremy. So, I really believe we're going to have a snap election in 3 years again. Bashira, why do you think there's going to be an election in 3 years? Do you think Boris Johnson won't make it to 5? And why not? I hate the free thing. It's not free, just a different way to fund it. That's the way it's put to the people. Max, you like them creepypasta eyes? Creepypastas. No, I am not familiar with I heard about creepypastas. Creepypasta, sorry. Some sort of horror stories or something like that. I'm really behind the times, guys. Is it time Labour voted for their favourite pair of ovaries instead of someone with ability? I don't know, Paul. Do you think if you were back in the 1970s and they said, look, we're thinking of having a woman in the Conservative Party, do you think most people would say, well, that's a good idea? Or I don't know. I think it depends on someone's ability. I actually don't. I don't know if you heard me in one of the videos. I said, look, you should choose someone according to ability, not because they're a woman. And I'm afraid that maybe the Labour Party will come down on the side of, well, it's better to choose a woman, even if Keir Starmer, for example, is better, because it's a woman's time. And that's not a good way to choose a leader. Max, are you supporting a federal Europe? I can see some benefits in a federal Europe. It could take years and years to rebuild, something I've never admitted to anyone. When I first saw JC become the leader of Labour, a voice inside my head said, "This guy's not going to be PM, but he's going to be a stepping stone to big change." Thatcher had ability in the 70s. So X-Ray, you saw, when you saw JC, you said he's not going to be PM, but he's going to be a form of change. I don't know. It's interesting to know, or to look at, will Corbynism survive the next year? Because the party at the moment is extremely split. So I think it's either going to go with a centrist or it's going to go with Corbynism again. I use Corbynism in a very light sense, obviously. Max, are you originally from Ireland? I can't work out your accent. Yes, I'm originally from Ireland, but I have been living in Italy for a long time. So I think I've lost some of my accent. Although somebody told me that I sound German for some reason. And then someone else told me... So I hope this is not offensive to any English people, but someone said that I sound colonial. So it was an American guy saying, "You sound colonial." I don't know where he got that from. What is colonial? You know, it's English from the 1700s. I think there's a very, very small community in New England where the people still have the accent from the 1700s. Because I don't know if you're familiar with this, but most accents change over time. So if you listen to people from the 1940s, if you listen to old World War II recordings, British soldiers from the 1940s, they sound really weird. People don't really talk like that anymore. The BBC actually done a very nice documentary about accents. It was very nice to watch. Very interesting. Okay. Labour should vote in a Blairite. Still better than a Tory. England is a right-wing country and will never accept even a centre-left leader. Jimson, I don't agree 100%. I think, you know, Boris Johnson, if you were to ask, how would you describe Boris Johnson 10 years ago? I wouldn't describe him as a right-winger or as a hard right. You know, when he was mayor of London, he was not right-wing. A lot of the policies he was, whether he, you know, really supported them or not, were, you know, quite centrist. So you sounded Irish with a slight Italian twang. Grazie. The no deal will break the Tories. But will Boris Johnson go for a no deal? That's the $1 million question. Because if he wants, as I've said before, if he wants a legacy, I don't think it's a good idea to go for a no deal. But if he doesn't care really much about that, then I would say, okay, he'll go for that. He'll go for a no deal. Most colonial accents have a touch of Irish in it. Okay. Thanks for that, Brice. That nugget. Been going on an hour and a half and thinking about your time zone also. Yes, here it's 12:30, midnight. Don't worry, I'm going to be here for a while. I don't have anything to do in the morning, so. His new newspaper articles were, I think, was that the real Boris Johnson? Would the real Boris Johnson please stand up? Was he writing them for attention, or was it because he really believed it? Because I don't think he really believed it. The things about, was it something he wrote about bendy bananas and laws on, European laws on toilet paper or something like that? You know, gross exaggerations of you know, laws that the European Union were attempting to introduce. He knew it was fake news, but he still decided to run those articles. I think it was for attention, really. Max, if I write Sargon diss track, would you record yourself rapping it and release it as a charity Christmas song? Who was it that did that that song from the 1940s? When you're punching Nazis, was it George Foreman version of punching Nazis or something? That was hilarious, with the Sargon of Akkad in it. Okay. If the Blairites want to convince us they need to present their ideas for government, they will. They have not done this. This is not enough. It's not enough to be against the left. You sound like a gangster from Dead Rabbits, Gangs of New York reference. Dead Rabbits, was that the one with Leonardo DiCaprio was part of, was it? I don't remember. I know there was the Irish and there were the natives. Boris' position is lick finger, put in air, see which way the wind is blowing. He's doing a lot of strange things. But I think, see, this is the thing about Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson pretends to be a fool, but he is no fool. I can guarantee that. He, the way he ruffles his hair before an interview, he knows that he can get away with this idea of, look, I'm just a fool, I'm just a buffoon. I can't be held to account because that's not really me. But I think he wants to do some, bad stuff, like regarding the, replacing judges with politically appointed judges. The video was by Siden. When I'm Cleaning Windows was the original song. The Blairites bloody lost Scotland. Blairite, why? Kennedy, the Lib Dem leader, was to left of Blair's Labour as often as not, and had John Brown, the Labour leader, before Blair, and more solid Labour. Okay. Yes, we all love Wee Scott's dog poems. You should put them in a book, I think. Publish it, put it on Amazon, and become a bestseller. Okay, I just want to go back to the questions in the community page. So we have the next question here is okay, because I want to not just focus on the one issue all the time. So we have Jamie Sample says, the disabled are very worried. I've been on this disability forum and seen a few people talking there their own lives, about taking their own lives if benefits are cut. Oh my God. So look, I've said before, what is the point in having a government if it doesn't look after its people? And most people like myself, I'm able-bodied, so I'm able to, if things get things go badly, I'm able to look around and get a job. But if I was disabled, I'd rely completely on, a carer or someone to provide for me, to clean up after me, to feed me or whatever, to, even if I'm not really, seriously disabled, maybe I just need someone to go and do shopping for me or to help me, out of a chair, or, we know all different types of examples. But when the government don't stop caring about those people, like, what can they do? They don't have the ability, they don't have the possibility to get up and march, to protest. They're always at the beck and call of someone else. And it's just disgusting if government don't look after those people. It's disgusting and frustrating and annoying, and it really makes me angry. So, because no matter how badly I can be, as I have a certain amount of autonomy, but if I'm stuck in a wheelchair, or if I'm stuck in a bed, or I'm not able to leave the house. The idea that government will just abandon me is disgusting. And how do these people sleep at night? How do they sleep knowing, okay, I've cut a service that, a certain number of disabled people really need? It's depressing, so it is. These people, I said before, I really hope they have a heart. I really hope that they're not the machines that we imagine them to be. We look at politicians, and this isn't about left or right, but generally when we look at politicians, we make fun of them. We say that they're stupid, or that they're ignorant, or that they don't care. But surely some of them have a feeling. They have some humanity in themselves. So it's really, I don't know, it's really sad that somebody can just be so indifferent to the suffering of others. You guys, I may disagree with you on certain issues, and we may exchange even strong language between each other on the chat or on the channel or whatever. But I'd never want anyone to suffer. I'd never want anyone to be in a situation where they needed to rely on a family member to help them out because the government wouldn't help them out. Anyway, I'm not going to depress us anymore. Hi Max, Sarah Jessica Ford. I never get tired of that name. If you can be bothered, can you please explain how the healthcare systems in both Italy and Ireland work? I especially want to know how much they're privatized and how much they are state-run. Unfortunately, Sarah, I'm probably not the best person to ask about this. What I will do, I'd like to do a video on it, so that gives me a suggestion. It's a good suggestion to do a video on it, because I know some people who are having a job is very positive for disabled, and I agree with that, Paul. Giving them a possibility to work gives them, like everyone else, a motivation to get up in the morning and do things. Is empowering. So Sarah, I want to do a video on the difference between the Italian one, because in every region, I'm not going to go into much detail now, but every region in Italy has its own sort of healthcare system. So where I am located, we have a sort of public-private partnership regarding healthcare. So, I can go to a public hospital and get a certain level of treatment, and I can get the same treatment if I go to a private hospital. And many times, when a public hospital is full or they don't have any availability, they will recommend you to go to the private one, but it's covered, so you don't pay anything extra. Now, they have introduced a lot of costs where, like a thing called ticket, where you normally have to pay if you're not a priority or if you don't want to wait. But normally the waiting time is not so bad. It can be, of course, it depends on what you have to wait for. But to give you an example, my wife had to, what was it? She had a problem with her hand, and she was expected to wait something like 3 or 4 weeks to see a specialist. And she said, look, I want to go private instead. And she paid, I think it was 150 euros for seeing the specialist and the treatment. So it was okay, 150 euros, but you're not paying it out every day or every week. So it was just a once off. And she didn't want to wait. She said, look, I can't take time off work. I just now is the time I want to get it sorted out. So we went to a private hospital. But what I'll do is I'll do some research on it, get some people who know it much better than I do, and I'll do a video on it, because it is an interesting topic. Okay, I sooner they'd capped the salaries of the NHS bureaucrats. Thanks. Okay. Max, how U.S. political scene affecting whole world and rise of populism? Well, they say when the U.S. sneezes, everyone else catches a cold. The U.S. political. So, what can we say about this? Trump is really changing the game. Here in Italy, we have a particular character called Matteo Salvini, and he is emulating Trump a great deal. Look at Nigel Farage, look at even Boris Johnson, how he's aping Donald Trump's language, his way of dealing with people. Of course, Boris Johnson is not the same as Donald Trump, but a lot of people are realizing that, a lot of politicians are realizing, oh, look, I can use populism as a tool for power. You don't actually have to believe in it. You just need other people to believe in it. I'm a man of the people. I'm fighting for you. Let's fight against the establishment. The establishment is the problem, not politicians, or not our party. We're the anti-establishment, and it's caught on and it's working. Now, how long it will last, I don't know. These types of fads tend to run their course after a few years. I think people realize, wait a minute, you're talking about representing us, but at the end of the day, you're just there for yourself. And Salvini is a good example of that. At least in Italy, the Sardinians protest is giving me hope. Yeah, the Sardinians are protesting against Salvini, because people, I really don't understand what people see in him, because he's fake. He's not real. Well, I honestly don't understand. He goes on Twitter, he does his selfies, but that's all he is. He criticizes the government, but when he was in government, all his issue was immigration. But he wasn't cracking down on companies who were, using immigrants for slave labor, basically. In the south of Italy, a lot of the tomato picking companies, also big company, famous companies in Italy, like Mutti, and one of the biggest tomato producers in Italy. They produce tomato sauce, whatever. They were involved in using slave labor, and it was basically slave labor. People were earning something like, I think it was 12 euros per day, but they had to pay 3 euros of that 12 euros for transportation from a shanty town, basically a shanty town, to the site to pick the tomatoes or pick oranges or whatever it was. And the government were, completely ignoring this problem. So when, people like Salvini who say, we need to stop the boat people, this for me is just window dressing, because he's not really interested in stopping immigration. It's a political tool. Or look, Salvini is stopping the immigrants from coming. But he's not, because he knows that certain industries need them because they're able to exploit them. So he's not going to stop all of them. It's just window dressing, really. Cheap labor is slavery, yes. There hasn't been any increase in football racism, example Portugal, where socialists are in power. Italy and the UK problems, I'm confident, is connected with political situations. I'm not a football fan, so I can't really point to the facts on that. It's worse in Eastern Europe. which is interesting. Why is certain aspects of racism accepted in Eastern Europe, while in Western Europe they're not acceptable? You're like referring to Africans with in really bad terms. It's like almost normal behavior. I'm not saying all people are like that, but there's a higher tolerance of it, and I don't know why. I remember them taking court action and the EU courts back them, so now these companies have to pay them back money. Thanks to the European Union, because the local government, the local government or the central government were doing nothing about it. So it's good that the European Union is putting pressure on the governments and the companies to pay the salaries of these people back. The people were kept in these shanty towns. Sorry about that. I have a new subscriber. The workers were held in these shanty towns, and then other immigrants were these types of capos, these types of leaders, who would exploit and abuse the immigrants who were also there. So these would be immigrants who had been here in Italy for a few years. They understood the system, and they would be like the boss of the new immigrants, and they would abuse them. They would take their money. They would organize the transportation, and they would take a cut of their salaries. It was disgusting. It's still happening, I should say. I shouldn't say it was disgusting. Populist politics feeds into some sort of base instinct. I think the base instinct is always to be fearful of the other. The other is coming to take what I have, be it my food, my land, my women, whatever it is. And the populist parties say, yes, I'm here to defend your food, your land, and your women. That's, we're thinking basic instincts. And yeah, you're right. Stefan Molyneux speaks. I know Stefan Molyneux speaks about racism on his YouTube channel. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but it's quite interesting. Stefan Molyneux is a very particular individual. So I first started really following politics. One of the first videos I saw regarding politics, and I started with politics, was actually from Stefan Molyneux. I think it was The Truth About... he does this truth series, but I don't remember the very first video. The truth about... maybe it was Barack Obama, or it was The Truth About Gandhi, or something like that. And I was blown away by this. Wow, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe this. I didn't know this was true. And... I thought he was an honest actor, but he's not really an honest actor. And a lot of the things he was telling was the truth. It was real. It was a fact. But then he started pushing this idea about libertarianism. And then I was, okay. If you... and then he started... this thing about Martin Luther King being a Marxist or a communist, and he was he started talking about his personal life and things he did in his personal life as a means to in a way to say that Martin Luther King was wrong, his policies were wrong because he did unethical things. I was like, okay, no, I don't understand that. Have you seen the new Star Wars Rise? No, please, no spoilers. I haven't seen it yet. Boris won't protect your woman. Given half a chance, he'd be around your house while you're at work. Boris Molyneux is a eugenicist too. Oh my God. So this is the thing: is you find one video and you say, "Oh, okay, this guy sounds reasonable," and then you start watching other videos, and then there's like um, suggested videos connected to him, and then you go down a rabbit's hole, and you end up in a very strange place. But I love that about Boris Johnson. Me, myself, and I's. You have to be careful of Boris Johnson, especially if he's in your constituency. Give a call home to make sure he's not there. Mullen took YouTube's silver dollar, or maybe like so many, he thought himself enlightened. He's like, he reminds me of, oh my God, what's that other guy? The Canadian, with a weird name. Molly Bollocks. What is the Canadian guy? Damn it. I don't want to leave the chat. Maybe some of you guys can tell me. I particularly dislike Molyneux on climate change because he's politically... Peterson, thank you very much. Wee Scott's dog. Because on climate change, he's a libertarian. So when the issue of climate change, he'll be like, oh, well, no, we shouldn't do anything because that's government interference. Like, I don't know if any of you guys are libertarians, probably not. But, you know, my question for libertarians, for example, would be, what if I steal your stuff? I come to your home, you're at work, or you're out visiting Boris Johnson, you're at work or whatever, and I come to your home and I steal your stuff. Okay, what happens then? Well, in a normal society, you would call the police. And the police would come, if there was surveillance video or whatever, the police would come to my home and they would arrest me. But in a libertarian country or society, how would it work? Most people I ask this, they'd say, well, I'd shoot you. Okay, but as soon as you start to ask questions, like for example, okay, let's ask a ridiculous question, but okay, you would shoot me. Okay, what would you shoot me with? I'd shoot you with a gun. Okay, and where would you buy ammunition for the gun? Well, I'd buy it in the guy selling it. And what would you use? I'd use money. No, you can't use money because that's something organized by the state, so you can't use money. Okay, then I'd use gold. Okay, but gold, how do we agree the value of gold? There's this thing about libertarians, we trade in gold. Yes, but somebody has to agree the value of the gold. Oh, okay. Okay, I just want to go back to the channel again. Just want to talk about something a bit different. Things that Scotland can do if Boris says no to an independence referendum. Apparently, the courts would be the way to go and take Boris to the Court of Human Rights. I think it may be wrong, though. I need to check that. Okay. Bear with me, guys. I'm just going to look for some of the interesting questions. How many manifesto pledges have the Tories whipped into fudge rather than sugary certainties, as the minimum wage rise today, for example? So I missed that. So the Tories talked about the minimum wage rise. Is anyone familiar with that? Is the minimum wage going to rise? And if so, by how much? Jordan Peterson is a weird guy. Should creepypasta be tax-free? Cheesy pasta. Yes, it should be tax-free, of course. Douglas Murray, I think his heart is in the right place. Not sure about his brain though. Yes, to £10. Okay, thanks a lot, QA Library. Yes, to £10 in April. Only, yes, okay. Yes, I remember. I was sure I'd seen something. So, and this was actually a promise during the election campaign. Yes, we're going to increase the minimum wage, but if the economy allows it, which means, well, we don't have to do it. So £10 in April, if the economy is right. Okay. What do you guys think of that? Is £10 reasonable? Do you think it's enough? Can people survive on £10 an hour? Especially, I imagine if you live in London, it's probably impossible. Minimum wage rise from Tories, good joke. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they will increase the minimum wage. But what in your opinion would be a sufficient minimum wage? I know some people will respond with saying, well, if you increase the minimum wage, many people will lose their jobs because companies won't be able to afford paying people. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it could be the case in some companies, but I think in many cases the minimum wage is normally applied to large companies. It's not for everyone, but I don't know. Do people working in a restaurant, are they also on minimum wage? Or if you're doing bar staff, £10.50. Good night, chaps. Work in the morning. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for your comments. It was very interesting. I hope the live stream was interesting for you. Have a good night's sleep, and don't work too hard tomorrow. So I'll just go back to some of the other questions. Okay, Richard Webster says, now we are coming out of the EU, can we start calling Snickers Marathon again? Do any of you guys remember Marathon? I think it changed from Marathon back in 1990 or 1988 or something like that. Really should be 15, let's face it, but small businesses can't afford, then the taxpayer has to bail the companies, bail the businesses with top up benefits. Yes, so what's the point in giving people a minimum wage if the companies can't afford it and then the taxpayer has to pick up the bill? Higher minimum wage, more disposable income, more money back into the economy, 10-15 minimum wage. That's one of the benefits I think of also universal basic income, that you give people cash in hand and they can spend it in the economy, and it build the economy benefits from that. Yes, Marathon, Chewits, Jif. Why did they change the name from Marathon to Snickers? I know these are deeply profound, difficult questions for our society to answer. It was the Yanks. So it wasn't the European Union. It wasn't the European Union imposing its bureaucratic dictatorship upon the UK by changing the name from Snickers. No, it was a marathon to Snickers. What was wrong with the name marathon anyway? Snickers, like, it sounds stupid. If you can't afford to pay your staff minimum wage, the business simple is that it's a cost like any other, rent, tax, etc. Half the high street is being boarded up with businesses going bust. What is the reason for that? Is it because of Amazon, do you think, Paul? Do you think Amazon could be, a lot of people are doing shopping online. More and more people are doing. I actually did most of the Christmas shopping online from Amazon. I know it's, people will complain, hey, you should be supporting local businesses, but sometimes people don't have the chance to, and I don't want to go into a shopping center full of people waiting around at the checkout and parking and all that jazz. I prefer just do it all from the phone. I prefer to do that. I know it's probably not the most ethical thing, but Snickers is the American name for marathon. Bloody Yanks. We need more money on the street level of our economy. Okay. Darth Brino says, please find a way to cheer us up. We Remainers are utterly dejected here. So I know Paul will find this quite funny, but how can Remain? Well, Remain is dead, unfortunately, but some people are talking about rejoining the European Union, but that's not going to be for another at least 5-10 years. Definitely not during the time of Boris Johnson is in Parliament, or is in number 10. But I think it's important to put pressure on politicians, keep them under pressure to maintain certain standards. You don't have to be in the European Union to have good standards for food standards or environmental standards or workers' rights. I think this could be an opportunity for more people to join unions, form unions, trade unions, put pressure on companies to allow trade unions to form. Many companies have been moving away from allowing their workers to form trade unions. This could be an opportunity, when people start to feel pressure in the workplace, working long hours or low pay. It could put pressure on people to fight for more rights. You have to, unfortunately, sometimes you have to take something away in order for people to really to know that it's important to have. We don't miss the water until the well runs dry, in a way. If you look at the real company consultants' reports and even the UK government, only 10 to 20% of shops are empty, but it's very localized. Also New York City, it's 50%. QA Library, why is that? Why are many stores empty? Is it, maybe I missed the chat. I don't know if you said that it's related to online stores. I think it could be. Could you give us more reasons why Corbyn was such a terrible leader? Jack Flood. I think I really cover most of them. He was not a good campaigner. He wasn't a fighter. And also this thing of avoiding doing long interviews. He did a few right before the general election, but he's been avoiding many interviews for a long time. And then when he did interviews, he got quite aggressive in the interviews, but not aggressive in a good way. It was like an angry man. Not, this is my position and I'm going to defend it. I don't know. He didn't come across very likable in the interviews. So I think that worked against him. Now, you could put that down to Jack. You could put that down to well, the BBC were against him, and Channel 4 were against him, or one of the reasons I think was problematic for him, he should have gone on LBC. I think he could have reached out to a lot of people there. That is a huge following, and even if people disagree with him, you're going to get through to some of them, because certain people will, as soon as they see Jeremy Corbyn on TV, they'll switch the channel. But if they're listening to LBC, they're in their car, or they're walking, listening on their phone or whatever, they're more or less forced to listen to him because they listen to the channel. So maybe they're more into, okay, I'm going to listen to Jeremy Corbyn get destroyed by James O'Brien or whatever. Yes, some people will hear him get destroyed, but some people may hear him say, oh, actually, that's not a bad policy, or, oh, actually, he responded to that question quite well, and they may change their opinion of him. That's why I think someone like Bernie Sanders should go on Fox News. He's going into a place where people completely disagree with him. The host disagrees with him, but there will be people in the audience or people listening or watching who will actually say, well, actually, this guy was not as bad as the media presented him to be. Come on, Max, you crazy optimist. Boris already scrapped workers' rights with the withdrawal agreement, and food standards are going down the drain. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but I don't know if it's possible to challenge these things. Maybe the next government could raise the standards, but then maybe that would require a new trade agreement with the US or with the EU. So maybe things are not so rosy after all. Let's face it, mainstream media, literalist and forensic with Corbyn on every detail, whereas they allow the Tories to be nebulous as they like. I saw Toby, Max, between you, Different Bias, and others, I feel comforted about the future of my nation. I really appreciate you, and if I'm able to donate support, I will. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was let's face it, the Tories, yeah, there was X-ray. Look, well, I don't remember who was it, Michael Gove or another minister was speaking on Sky News and was not challenged at all on a few questions, on one of the comments they made. So I don't know if Jeremy Corbyn was grilled completely, but yes, in some cases he wasn't treated fairly. He wasn't treated equally as one of the ministers. But I remember the environmental debate where they wanted to put Michael Gove on instead of Boris Johnson. Like, how was that acceptable? How was Boris Johnson not dragged kicking and screaming to the studio to answer these questions, to answer for himself? I don't understand that. I'm off to bed. See you in the next stream. Merry Christmas to you all. Merry Christmas, EU's #1 fan. Thanks for all your time here. Thanks for your comments. It was very enjoyable. Also probably do one of the occasions to really embarrass myself. Okay, I guess we'll go quickly to some of these more comments. The infighting in the Labour Party. So who's going to become... Well, okay, Max, curious to know your thoughts on how Dominic Cummings and Seamus Millen have to do with the 2019 election. Should Labour hire Dominic Cummings for the next few years? Well, they couldn't do any worse. Well, they should ask, maybe if they pay Dominic Cummings enough, he'll be able to get them to win some elections. There was always this idea that Dominic Cummings was being outsmarted by someone else, that he and Boris wanted to push for a general election back in September. In October, the Remain parties were like rejecting his requests, and Dominic Cummings had been, outmaneuvered, and he was not worth the money that he was being paid. I think Dominic Cummings had revenge there. He got the last laugh on that. These political strategists, they know how to sell a party. They know how to sell a message. And if you look at the language around the Leave campaign, Brexit means Brexit. Leave means leave. Simple messages. The same with Boris Johnson towards in the general election. Get Brexit done. Simple slogans. I think Dominic Cummings went. He conducted these focus groups, asking them, how's this message? For example, Brexit means Brexit, and get people to put up their hand. Do you like this message? 3 people out of 6 put up their hand. Okay, let's try this other one. Leave means leave. Okay, 4 out of 6 like this one. Get Brexit done. Yeah, I like that one. So, they would organize these focus groups, get the message, the most popular message or the most popular slogan, and then they'd run with that, and it worked. So Dominic Cummings is you could say well worth his weight in gold, because he knew what the public wanted to hear, and he sold it to them. So maybe the Labour Party should get on the phone and offer him double. It's a fair question. After we have left, would you acknowledge you were wrong and Brexit has been a success? Well, we won't know Brexit has been a success, Paul, until... what do we judge as success? It sounds like, a bit like the war in Afghanistan. What is success? If the economy... for you, if the economy got worse, would it be a success? If the economy got better, would it be a success? If the economy grew by 1%, is that a success? If it grew by 10%, would that be a success? Like, how do you judge a success? Like, I'm not going to come out and say it was a success or it was a failure. I imagine if things got worse than they are today, we could either put it down to Brexit, or we could put it down to the natural cycle of things. But if the country has less ability to deal with problems, then we'd have to say that Brexit was not a success. But I don't know, how would you define a success? Because I can't. I could say this is a success, but it would only be for me. It wouldn't be for other people. Like, there's no objective meaning of success when it comes to politics or Brexit or whatever. Brexit will be a success for Brexiters, because they voted for it. I actually believe that Boris Johnson could tell a lot of people, maybe not you, Paul, but many people, Brexit has been done. And they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They wouldn't know if... For many people, they still believe that the UK has left the European Union already. At what point will you accept Project Fear was grossly misleading? But which aspect of Project Fear? Because you're saying it's Project Fear. Other people were calling it reality. So your question is a weird question. Like, you're injecting a bias into the question, and you're wanting me to respond to the bias. like Nissan, Tesla, 400,000 job losses. I would call that not a success. At what point do you learn glossary and misleading? Okay. I'm not, look, we're not going to attack people's spelling or, typos. Funny how all these free marketer clans claim that to be capitalist yet have no concept of wholesale discount. The right nearly split over Brexit, but somehow held together. Ironically, it was self-interest. Yeah, I agree with Scott's dog. It's they just wanted to get Brexit because nobody knew what Brexit was at the beginning. So it was very easy to say we're going to get it done because nobody knew what it was. Like there was no real example of what Brexit was going to be back in 2016. Nobody said, this is Brexit. We'll have this type of deal. We'll have this type of situation when we leave. We'll be paying this amount of tax, or we will have this amount of money available for the economy. Nobody had said this. There were no plans. It was all just slogans. It was feelings. Yeah, we'll feel better. We'll be able to probably do this. We'll be an independent country. Like Nigel Farage with his, we'll be an independent country. What the hell does that mean, independent country? And then when you ask him, what does that mean? He couldn't answer it. There was no answer for it. Like, do you have a parliament? Yes. Do you have your own money? Yes. So, like, what are you talking about in an independent country? But because it sounded nice, people who don't understand what independence means would say, oh, well, yes, we want to be an independent country. And Nigel is telling us we can be that. This is old hat. When it goes to buggery, Alex will blame the EU. Okay. Look, guys, no personal attacks on anyone. Please. No one will do business with them independent. Brexit will eat itself. If the Brexit economy is a success, it will be at a cost of workers' rights and conditions. Yes, I agree, Brice. It's, if there are minimum standards and you remove the minimum standards, then do we imagine businesses will say, okay, we're going to implement higher standards? Why? Businesses are designed to make a profit, and governments should be there to make sure that those companies, those businesses, don't abuse the law, don't abuse their workers, don't abuse standards. We need government in this sense. We can't allow companies to set the rules themselves. Look at how companies have set the rules themselves in all of history. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. You can't blame them for that. If I have a company and I can find a way around a law, if I can find a way to save money, I'll do it. So that's why we need governments to regulate them. Okay, I want to go back to the channel community. So it says here, Daniel T says about the infighting in Labour. Okay, we talked about that. Turbo Toes, talk about echo chambers and people repeating the same bullshit, even when it's not enough on both wings of politics. Look, I try to avoid echo chambers within my channel. That's why I think it's important, like someone like Paul who disagrees with me is on the channel and is free to write. Yeah, I don't always respond to Paul, but I've never deleted any of Paul's comments. I haven't done it. If YouTube has done it, I apologize, but I didn't have control of it. I get something like over 1,000 comments per day on the channel. But I don't want the channel to become an echo chamber, and I know there is a certain amount of echo chamber-ish in the channel because of the nature of the channel, because I have a particular political opinion, and most of the people on the channel have a similar political opinion. And people will disagree with me or agree with me on different issues. But I don't want it to become an echo chamber because it's boring. It's important to have a disagreement. And I think, the live stream, many people have different opinions on different things and disagreements on different things. So the idea of echo chambers, I think we should try and bust the bubble of the echo chamber as much as possible. And the moderator, in this case me, should always avoid the very easy solution. It's very easy for me just to, if someone like Paul says something that I don't like, just to delete the comment or to put him on hidden. Hidden is a fantastic tool. I use it only with spammers, really, because there are people who just write and then disappear, write an insult and then disappear. I respond to them sometimes, but they don't respond back. So I go, okay, this person is not interested in having a discussion. They're just here to spam. So I put those people on hidden so they can write as much as they want, but nobody will see their comment. I generally don't use that. I think it's not, I try to avoid it, but sometimes it's necessary. But I prefer, if people want to have an honest discussion, if people want to engage, then I want them on the channel, because it makes it, it's more realistic. It's more like real life. And I don't think it's good for us to to block ourselves off from other opinions. Because, to give you an example, I used to have one opinion on gun rights in the US, and someone responded to me on this channel and explained in detail why my position was faulty, why there was problems with my position, and I changed my position on it. Not completely, but I changed certain parts of it, so I was more open to that opinion. And I learned something from that. I think it's very important for us to open up and to be more open to other opinions. Okay, sorry. A very hard question for you and Phil. With the WTO court shut down due to Trump blocking it working, this could greatly affect any trade deals in the UK, etc. The trade deals. So I think there's a big problem. Okay, Trump, the WTO shut down due to Trump's blocking it. This could greatly affect. So I don't know if I'm responding to the question directly, but there is this issue of, okay, Trump, well, not Trump, because Trump may not be there when in 2021, the end of the transition period. But if how can we say this? The UK may want to have a trade deal with the EU, and the EU will say, in this trade agreement, this trade deal, you need to respect certain standards. It doesn't have to be the European Union member standards. It could be different standards. But if these standards are higher than the standards that the US want to do trade with, this could be a problem. So how would the UK square this circle? The US say we want very low standards, and the EU say we want higher standards. how would we resolve that conflict? Because you'd have products that have to reach a certain standard. Would you have two lines of production, one for American and one for European? But I don't think that would be good for companies because it's an extra cost. Would they just go with the lower standard? No. Would they just go with the higher standard? Maybe not. So they'd have to maybe close themselves off for certain products. Some products may not be sold in the US, some products may be sold only in Europe, and vice versa. That's not a good way to go ahead, because it means that, for example, if you're selling fish, you may say, okay, I want to sell fish in. I'm not just picking an example out of the air. Say you want to sell fish, you say, okay, I want to sell it around the world. Well, you can't actually, because the standards required are different. While, if you're part of a large trading group like the European Union, which has more power, you have better access to different markets. But I'm not an expert on this, so Marka is probably, I'm sure Phil would have a better response to that. I baby worded my question. It seems like the UK government has a choice, NAFTA or EU. DK Mail, okay, thanks for the stream. Have a great night. You too. See you later. I may do another stream before the new year, but I don't know yet. But if I do check it out. I want to see Heseltine and Clark smash Boris. Andrew, Google it, mate. Okay. Let me see. This is an issue that came up. I'd like to get you guys' take on this. So just a moment, bear with me. I'll open it in the browser. So it says here, High Court says UK's £1,012 child citizen fee is unlawful. Court finds mass of evidence that fee stops many children registering for citizenship. In a landmark judgment, the High Court has found that the Home Office's £1,012 child citizen fee is unlawful. The fee has been described as shameless profiteering by Amnesty International. The current fee affects tens of thousands of children in the UK. The project for registration of children as British citizens, which brought the case, along with two children affected by the high fees, estimate that there are about 120,000 children in the UK without British citizenship. Approximately 65,000 of whom were born here. In 2018, more than 40,000 children applied to register as British citizens. According to the Home Office, the cost of processing a child citizenship application is just £372, so the department makes a profit of £640. How can the government make a profit? So I just want to stop there for a moment, where it says the government makes a profit. The government is not a business. It's not in the government's job. It's not the government's job to make a profit. Like, how can you justify making a profit? Your job is to provide a service to citizens. Like, your way to make money should be through taxation, through taxes on people's salaries, or taxes on government's profits or companies' profits, but the profit is okay, £640. According to the Home Office, okay, the families of, I don't know if you guys are still following me. Maybe there's a delay in the chat. Okay. The families of many children who have had the right to be registered as British citizens, having been born in the UK and lived here for the first 10 years of their lives, simply cannot afford the high cost of registration. So thousands are condemned to live in limbo. The case challenging the lawlessness of the profit element of the Home Office 1012 fee for a child to register as a British citizen and the lawfulness of charging a fee where a child cannot afford it was heard by Mr. Justice J in the High Court last month. Is this part of Theresa May's toxic environment? What's the term? I forget. Yes, how do they justify these costs? £1,000. I understand it's trying to reduce the number of people registering as citizens, but why is that a problem? Blue passports, they gave the contract to French firm, and it gave the company due to security. Now it has been subcontracted to Polish company. So much for keeping, jobs in Britain. Okay, I'm just going to answer one more question on the community page. It says, Chairman Johnson, the leader of the People's Party. Google the Melanie On story, Max. We can do that now. So Melanie On, we can read this together. So let me connect to the stream. Okay, these web pages don't allow me to scroll down for some reason, because the tool I'm using won't let me scroll down. So Where it all went wrong for Melanie On and the guy from Cuba who became a symbol for how Corbyn and co just did not get Grimsby. For some reason it won't let me open the page. And look, I just go back to the stream, to the chat. Hope the Polish company they've given the passport to is Mr. Sheen. The blue passports will get nice and shiny too. It's really interesting getting different angles on the issue from different people's opinions. Yes, it is. So I was talking to some of the people earlier in the stream about Clive Lewis. So I was wondering, what do you guys think of Clive Lewis? I'm not familiar with him. Do you think he would be a good leader for the Labour Party? I've actually spoken to Melanie on the train. She was a very pleasant woman. She was always going to face challenges in Grimsby. The town has suffered because of the common fisheries policy. The majority of people who voted brought... Hi Max, what is your view on the Stormzy row, where he labelled Boris Johnson a very bad man and compared him to a big bad wolf? Okay, maybe I'm not going to be very popular with this, but I don't think it's a good idea to refer to politicians as bad people. I think it makes more sense to, criticize their policies. Now we're talking about children, so maybe children it'd be very difficult to explain, a party policy to a child. But I understand why Stormzy did it, but I don't think it's actually helpful. Like describing Boris Johnson as a bad man, I think it's a minefield. I don't know what you could actually say, because bad man is very simple language, and it's, you're putting something in the minds of children. I always feel that you should not attack people, you should attack their positions. So he should have maybe said, Boris Johnson's a good person, but some of the things he's doing are maybe not very good. I don't know. Considering that there wasn't supposed to be he's thrown his hat in the ring everywhere else. He lost his seat, didn't he? Or he didn't win a seat. If it was all about policy, JC would have won hands down. And that's well, we'll never know. And maybe you're right, X-Ray. But we'll never know, because unfortunately JC created or allowed a lot of problems to be created that he could have avoided. I object to referring to Stormzy as a musician. And can Clive Lewis handle a kicking from the media and the opposition? Anyone left in Labour who has no skeletons in the cupboard that can be used against them by the mainstream media? I criticised Jeremy Corbyn for the baggage, and I still criticise him because of that. But it's how you deal with the baggage. I had said in one of the videos, when Boris Johnson said, "Oh, you're connected to the IRA or Republicans in Northern Ireland," Jeremy Corbyn should have responded, "That was ages ago. And what about you with your connections to the Saudi government and you selling weapons to them, even though they're doing, you know, horrible things in Yemen, and turn the argument around, use it as a weapon against the people who are attacking you. But I don't think Jeremy Corbyn is that type of person. I don't, you know, you need to be very quick and respond immediately and turn the attack on the attacker and make it look like, okay, Boris Johnson was attempting to attack me and show me as a fool or show me as being a bad guy, but you turn it around and he's on the defensive, and you turn what originally was an attack into a defense, and it's much more difficult if Boris Johnson has to defend his position, or the Tories have to defend their position on Saudi Arabia, for example, because then people will say, oh, why is he talking about Saudi Arabia now? And what's that connection between the British government and Saudi Arabia? Maybe I'll do a Google on that. Okay, I found out some very bad things about the British government and the Saudi government, or what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen, for example. No one is happy Labour are still over the shop. No, I don't understand that, Chris Nolan. George Galloway always said that if you don't run, they can't chase you. Stand your ground. Well, he's right there. Look at Trump. Trump is a fantastic example of doubling down, ignoring the criticism, redirecting the criticism. Like when people were attacking Donald Trump, like for example with this impeachment, they're attacking Donald Trump as, you are, which is right. Like you put pressure on the Ukrainian government to look into Joe Biden. And what was Trump's response? Well, first of all, he denied it a number of times. But at the end, what did he say? But Joe Biden was corrupt. And I was doing what I should do. You know, so he redirected the question, not about what he was doing, but what was Joe Biden doing? What was Joe Biden's son doing in Ukraine? Why was he earning $50 or $60 or $80,000 a month when he didn't have any qualifications to do the job? So he turned the attack back on the people who were attacking him. In this case, it was the media, but it could be, could be easily another politician attacking you. You respond with your own attack, and you change the narrative from the corruption you're doing to the corruption they're doing. Just read an article saying that Melanie Hahn was sent a letter from the Brexit Party asking to vote for them. The Tories have many skeletons in their cupboard regarding for terrorists. Yes, of course. In the 1980s, I'm not going to comment on that. They criticised Corbyn for wanting to sit down and talk with the IRA, but John Major signed off the Good Friday Agreement. Agreement including the release of the IRA men. He just rolled over and took it. That's a good point, Paul. The Tories sat down with the IRA, sat down with Sinn Féin. But I don't have a criticism of sitting down with people. I don't criticize John Major for sitting down with Sinn Féin. You sit down with your enemies. You don't sit down with your friends. You make peace with your enemies, not with your friends. That's why Donald Trump going to North Korea and speaking with Kim Jong-un, I applaud that, because you make peace with them. You don't have to like these people. The same with Tulsi Gabbard going to Syria and meeting Assad. I applaud that. That's what you should be doing. Like, not talking to these people. How does that achieve peace? Trump is the first president reared by TV. What I was saying about Trump, responding is not an endorsement, okay? But it's an endorsement of the activity, not of the messenger. Boris unfortunately comes over as charismatic. Labour needs similar, but who? For God's sake, he was voted in Mayor of London, a Labour city. people like, see, the problem is, and I've said this before, you guys, me, and many people online, political junkies, we care about policy. Most of us care about policy. But the public don't care about policy. They don't understand policy. They don't understand how politics works. They don't understand how, why parties do certain things and how they, the internal mechanisms of the parties and parliament. And, there's this idea that politicians hate each other, but, they all go together for a drink after in the pub, or they smoke a cigarette outside the parliament building together. Would you sit down to talk with Trump? I'd love to sit down. Can you imagine the likes or the dislikes or the views on the channel, Paul? No, seriously. Would I sit down and talk with Trump about what? Like, I don't consider myself, greatly intelligent or average intelligence, but like, what would I talk to him about? We'd need to have something in common. So I don't know what I'd talk to him about. She endorsed Pinochet. Who? I assume, what's her name? Margaret Thatcher. Agreed. But what we're really saying is that politics is all about perception. It is. Politics is about perception. It's not about doing something. It's about convincing people that you're doing something. And convincing people you will do it, and convincing people you have done it. You don't actually have to do it. You just have to convince people you have done it. And that's one of the things I think Boris Johnson could actually pull off with Brexit. And this is not beyond the realm of possibility. Paul says, you just said you sit down with your enemies. Why not Trump? I said I would sit down with Trump, but I don't know what I'd talk to him about. Also, he's not my enemy. We're not at war with each other. We have a disagreement on policies. But honestly, I wouldn't mind sitting down with him. But I don't know what I'd talk to him about. I've lost my train of thought again. The English love posh people, especially posh men. That's part of Johnson's popularity. Sorry, about perception, yes. It's also, yeah. But is Boris Johnson posh? He speaks with a posh accent. But when you look at him, he doesn't look posh. What is posh actually? Is posh the accent? Is it the way you talk, the words you use? Is it the way you walk? Is it the way you dress? Jacob Rees-Mogg is posh, but Boris Johnson is also posh, but they're very different. Some people would say that Keir Starmer is posh, but he's very different. So, it's difficult to identify what is posh. I think Labour are in disarray. I don't think they have an obvious candidate whatsoever. You could try telling him off for building a wall. And ask him, where are you going to build the wall? And how much is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? Because I think the Mexicans were going to pay for it, but that seems to have changed. Ask my missus if she was awake. I always thought there was only two candidates that could give Corbyn trouble, Bojo and Nigel. That was when they were both in political wilderness. Eton educated is posh. Can you be posh without going to Eton? Jacob Rees-Mogg is fake posh, purely manufactured. Well, he does it well. He gets away with it. And again, that's perception. If I pretend to be posh, do people believe me? Am I posh? Posh is inbred trash sent to boarding school. Turnberry is posh. She sounds it, but she doesn't look it. You know, there's some people. It's terrible when you see someone who looks fantastic and then they open their mouth and you're like, oh my god, okay. Or maybe I should shut up. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Doesn't Boris's bohemian lifestyle somewhat negate his professed conservatism? But again, I think Jamie Sampson, it's about perception. But also, I think this is the thing about the right, is that they will say one thing when they say this is very important. The family is the most important unit in society. And then Boris Johnson can be asked how many children he has, and he doesn't answer the question. And he won't be, held to account. So I don't believe when people on the right say the family is important, we must defend the family, or we must defend the unborn, they're normally bullshitting you. Because the ones who will say we need to defend the unborn will be the same people who will pay for their mistress to have an abortion. The people who say we need to defend the family are the same people who will be like Boris Johnson and not know how many children, well, will not answer how many children they have. Tulsi looks fantastic and sounds fantastic. Tulsi Gabbard is my political crush. It's like, if you imagine what a perfect politician should look like and sound like she's, I don't know if you're familiar with her outside, but she's a soldier, a major in the army, and the reserve army, I think it is, in the National Guard, sorry. She does yoga, she does fitness videos, she does she ran a marathon recently. Like, can you think of anyone? She's beautiful as well. She speaks, in an articulate way. She's not mumbling like me, or missing words or forgetting context or anything like that. She's like the complete opposite of Donald Trump. Like, she's fit, she's beautiful, she's well spoken, she's a patriot. She's someone who has fought. She's not Captain Bone Spurs. And she's not. There's no bullshit about her. Like, she'll say things that are not politically correct or politically acceptable for many people. But she said, that's me. And I'm not going to flower the language, or I'm not going to dodge or be Machiavellian in my politics. I'm going to say it as it is. So in a certain sense, she's a bit like Trump in that way. But in all other aspects, she's the complete opposite. Yeah, I've got a crush on Tulsi. And guess what? She just happens to be brilliant. Guys, I can't help it. If Corbyn is anti-Semitic, how was he influenced by Momentum, a movement that started by 4 activists? 3 of them were Jewish. Well, Alex, I don't know if you were here at the beginning. I said, why was this issue of anti-Semitism so important 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and then suddenly we're not hearing about it anymore? Why is there not a peep about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn? When you talk about abortion, the argument is a woman's right to choose. In family courts, it becomes the right of the child. Your material rights change as your head leaves your mother. Okay, I'm not going to go into that now. He was far too tolerant of people who were. I don't understand that comment. Instead of posh, it's more the British education a system of class and knowing your place in the class system. The queen being at the top of the tree and the lower. What does your wife think of your YouTube channel? She's like always, who are you arguing with? Because maybe I'm writing a comment or responding to a comment. She never actually watches any of the videos. She's not interested really in politics, and especially British politics. She doesn't understand British politics, so she's not really interested in it at all. But she's very supportive. She says, like, you know, if you need to do live streams, if you need time to work on the channel, go ahead. I'm by your side. So I really appreciate that. He was on the stage with the Labour. So yeah, about Jeremy Corbyn. So, you know, this idea that anti-Semitism was a huge issue and then suddenly it disappeared in a week. That's why I think it was a smear. It wasn't a real issue. And I think it was disgusting how the chief rabbi brought it up as well. Because what is the chief rabbi talking about now? Is he talking about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party or in political parties? Silence. Why is he not on TV complaining about anti-Semitism in society? It's disgusting. This is not about Jeremy Corbyn. This is about how people will use certain issues for political gain. And to hell with consequences. Hillary Clinton is so funny. I've never known a public figure to be so promoted yet remain so unpopular. What is it, Sarah? What is it with Hillary Clinton? Why doesn't she just go away? Like, she has hundreds of millions of dollars. She could live on an island in the middle of the Caribbean, have people, bring her, martinis or what do you call it, Long Island iced tea or pina coladas or something, and have a fantastic life, and not bug anyone, and not get involved in politics, and try to destroy other people's chances of making the situation better for ordinary people. Downton Abbey has a lot to answer for. I would love to talk like the people on Downton Abbey. How do you feel about Owen Jones? Owen Jones. So I did call him actually a sycophant for Corbyn. Maybe that was a bit too harsh. That's really my response to Owen Jones. He's just, I don't really know what he is. He's a political activist. He's a Twitter celebrity. He's a Corbyn. Is he like related to the Corbyn part of the Labour Party? Is he an activist in the party? I don't know really what is he? Is he a journalist? Because he writes columns for the Guardian. He's always promoting the lefty Milo. My God. So you say Hillary Clinton is like Tony Blair. Hilarious Clinton is like Tony Blair. Owen Jones is like Ash Sacker. Should do a Labour of Labour's favour and go away. Activist journalist is probably fair to call him. He's a clown. You're making him sound far too important. I don't know what. So he's an activist and a journalist, but like I'd like to know what is his connection to the Labour Party. Does he have a position in the Labour Party? Because I think it's important to know these things, because to know people's biases. Of course, he's a Labour activist through and through. But I think he's been very defensive of Jeremy Corbyn, overly defensive. Sarah Jessica Farter, where can I ask a question? Why did you choose this name? And actually, are you from the UK or are you from America? So I assume Sarah Jessica may be from America. And Sarah Jessica Parker is American, so you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. I thought he was just a student activist. He looks like he's 18 or 19. I don't know what his secret is. How he gets away with looking so young. He was defending the absurd manifesto on the BBC, pretending he knew what he was talking about. He's a Labour influencer. Is that like an Instagram influencer? Wow, okay, I have been on the live stream for 3 hours now, so I hadn't planned to do it so long. So I'm going to finish at about 2 a.m. here, so I have to finish up now. So I'll just let you guys, if you want to ask any more quick questions, I'll respond to that, and then I'll have to end the live stream. But I want to hear the great mystery behind Sarah Jessica Farter. Hillary Clinton has more money than she needs, just like any other extremely wealthy people. Her goal is to... Then why the hell doesn't she put her name on an art gallery or something? Get UNESCO to name a mountain after her and just leave everyone else alone, because, as soon as she gets involved in things, she just... Like, there was even talk of her running again. Like, what the hell? Lad Baby's ex-Christmas song, are you a fan? I'm not familiar with it, but I'll have to check it out. Good night, X-Ray. Thanks for joining the stream. Thank you, Max, for live stream. Thank you very much, QA Library. I appreciate all the hard work you do for me. You're an unpaid intern. Just joined, but which candidate at the moment would you back for Labour leader? Pyman. So just to let you know, Pyman, I'm going to go off very soon in a few minutes. I've been on for 3 hours. So who would I back? I don't know if I'd back anyone, but I think probably one of the best would be probably Keir Starmer. He seems like, someone who's decent who has a decent chance of winning the leadership, who would be probably a good opposition leader. By Mojo and OMG WTF, fantastic. You're not. No, I don't understand. Jimmy Carter will leave a legacy. Bill Gates will leave a legacy. Bill Gates has a trust, but also the Clintons have a trust. Richard Burton. I feel sorry for Richard Bergen. I think his heart is in the right place, but I don't know how does he go on interviews and he gets destroyed. So good night, Paul. Thanks for your thanks very much for your comments. Hopefully see you again soon. Jess Phillips, thanks, Max. Thank you, Mart. 123. Are you Irish? Yes, I'm Irish, but I live in Italy. So I've been here for many years, so I probably don't sound very Irish now. Lisa Nandy is backing at the moment. I'm backing at the moment. Yeah, Lisa Nandy sounds like an interesting... I think she supported Brexit, but I think at this stage, whether people supported Brexit or not is no longer an issue, because Brexit is off the table. The Labour Party need to go back to working class. Kitty Roo, hello again. Ciao. the working class need to go, or sorry, the Labour Party need to go back to their roots of the working class. And if it's someone who supported Brexit or not supported or didn't support Brexit, that's no longer an issue, I think. Alex Morgan, good night. Wee man. Maybe that's more Northern Ireland accent. Sorry. Well, I spotted the accent anyway. I'm from Waterford. Oh, great. You sound as Irish as Father Ted. Father Ted or Father Jack? Okay, it's after 2. I hate to leave you guys. I think we're down to like 50 viewers. So this was a great. Sono molto stanco anche io. Mi dispiace, Kitiru. Hey man, just tuned in. What do you think of Clive Lewis? He's my MP. Alan Part. William Alice, I'm very sorry you're just joining now. I think Clive Lewis sounds like an interesting possible candidate. I don't know very much about him, so I can't really comment. I'm going to do a bit of research on him. What do you think of him as your MP? Depends how drunk you are. Actually, when I drink more, I sound more Italian because I start speaking Italian better than I normally would. But it has to be Prosecco. Good night, Andrew. Thank you for joining the live stream. Good night, Paul. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the comments. See you, Jessica. Okay, I'm really sorry, guys. I need to go. Have a good night, and I'll see you at the next live stream. Not sure when it will be, but I hope pretty soon. I hope to do one before 2020, so maybe next week. So have a good night, and if I don't see you, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and have a good day